backyard filled with tall grass and the smell of jasmine, Kepler adjusted the final bolt on his homemade rocket. It was built from salvaged silver metal and dreams of the great unknown. He felt a shiver of excitement as he stepped onto the ladder, ready to leave the ground behind and touch the face of the sky. With a roar that shook the flowers and a flash of light, the rocket soared. Kepler sat gripped in his seat, watching the blue sky turn into the deepest indigo. The air grew thin, the gravity felt light, and suddenly, the rattling stopped. He was no longer a boy in a backyard. He was a traveler of the stars. Outside the porthole, the earth looked like a fragile marble of sapphire and cream. Kepler pressed his palm against the glass, realizing how small and beautiful home truly was. The silence of space was not empty. It was full of possibilities, waiting for him to explore them. Suddenly, something tapped on the glass. It was Orbit, a small, spherical robot with a single glowing blue eye, floating just outside the hatch. Kepler pulled the lever to let the little visitor in. Orbit beeped a cheerful greeting, spinning in the weightless air like a metallic dancer. Their first stop was the crystal moon of Varda. As the rocket landed softly on the shimmering dust, Orbit flew out to scout the terrain. The ground was made of jagged violet gems that caught the light of distant suns, casting rainbows across the dark purple sky. Kepler joined Orbit on the surface, moving in long, slow leaps. They found a grove of bell-shaped plants that vibrated with a soft, humming sound. When Kepler touched a petal, it released a puff of golden glitter that floated upward, singing a lullaby that echoed in his helmet. They flew deeper into the galaxy, entering the heart of a swirling nebula. The clouds were made of pink and orange stardust, thick enough to feel like velvet against the hull of the ship. Kepler let go of his seat and floated in the middle of the cabin, feeling as light as a thought. Orbit pointed toward a giant golden star that hummed with warmth. It wasn't just a ball of fire. It felt like a friendly guardian of the sector. Orbit extended a solar panel, soaking up the golden rays to recharge his batteries for the long journey ahead. As they sat together by the open hatch, looking out at a distant green planet, Kepler felt a pang of longing for his own bed. He had seen the wonders of the universe, but he knew that every adventure needs a home to return to. Orbit chirped softly, sensing his friend's quiet mood. The descent was a blur of heat and color until the rocket settled back into the tall grass. That night, Kepler lay in his bed, the moon shining through his window like a familiar face. He closed his eyes, knowing that while he was back on Earth, his heart would always belong to the stars.